go to the hotline and bring in the preeminent newsbreaker in Texas high school football around the state. We're joined by Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School football insider, Matt Stepp. Matthew, it is good to have you on. Have you? It's been a wild couple of days in the coaching carousel. Have you come up for air yet?
Absolutely, of course. And I think you're overstating my importance just a little bit, though. I don't know if I'm the preeminent newsbreaker. I just try to get a little story here and there when I can,
That Matt Stepp, always humble.
Yeah, exactly.
Humble brag.
Humble brag. Oh, yeah, humble brag. So let's get into kind of the big news from last night. The DeSoto Eagles have their third coach in 3 years, and it's the guy who was, if you were to extend it, they have their fourth coach in 5 years, I believe. It's that first guy. They're going back to Claude Mathis. Claude Mathis is leaving Marshall to come back to DeSoto. Can you tell us a little bit about how this all came down? And I understand that there was it was not exactly a unanimous decision there in DeSoto.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Coach Mathis, he's kind of been a 50-50 guy in DeSoto for a while since his departure. There's about half the community absolutely loves him, and then there's another half the community that isn't really big fans of him. And that's just kind of the way it's been. You can't deny the success that he had at DeSoto. I mean, 74-18 in 7 years is pretty salty stuff. But for whatever reason, that he's kind of a split down the middle guy, and the school board vote in a lot of ways reflected that with the 4-1 vote with 2 abstaining. This has been talked about for a while in DeSoto. His name, every time DeSoto opens up, his name has been rumored and mentioned for the job. And so I think this is one of those things where it was going to happen eventually. And so let's just go ahead and make it happen and see where it goes from there. I think ultimately what this is going to do is end the Claude Mathis speculation for the next guy, because if DeSoto went in another direction and hired another guy, then he's still going to have that specter of Mathis and his personality still kind of hanging over him at DeSoto, and it was going to kind of hang over it until they hired him. So I think now DeSoto is going to be able to move forward with the coach, and hopefully if it doesn't work out, the next guy won't have to deal with kind of the specter of Claude Mathis. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to go – I don't think there's any middle ground this hire. I think this hire is going to be either a complete home run for DeSoto or it's going to end not great. I think it's going to be one – I don't think there's going to be any middle ground here.
He's a bit of a lightning rod there in south of Dallas, but he is back where it started. Claude Mathis hired again at DeSoto. But, of course, there's a counter step to that, which is yes, Claude Mathis is going to be the new coach at DeSoto, but that opens up Marshall, which is an intriguing job out east. Do you anticipate there to be a fair amount of interest in this job out there with the Mavericks?
If it opens up, absolutely. I think Marshall's got a lot of things going for them. They were 10-3 last year. They've got a lot returning. And I talk about this in my weekly column, which will be out tomorrow on TexasFootball.com, This Week in Texas High School Football, which is my baby every week during the off season. But Marshall's going to move fast on this deal. They're going to try to have a guy in place, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. This is not, if it does get posted, it is only going to get posted for 10 days, and they're going to move fast. There are some questions as far as if it's going to get actually posted externally, because they've got 2 qualified coordinators on staff right now, and there's something to be said about with the amount of experience they have coming back next year, coming off of a 10-3 season, to keep as much continuity as possible, which would be hiring from within. The issue is, I think if both coordinators go after the job, I think the one who doesn't get it is probably going to be gone. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be kind of there's going to be some staff upheaval for sure. But I think the big question is, does Marshall look to the outside? Because I've talked to some coaches off the record, including a couple who have state championships, and there's interest in the Marshall job if it actually gets posted. So I don't think the Mavericks are going to have any shortage of quality candidates either way.
We're talking with Matt Stepp, Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School Football Insider here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. So let's go even further south from DeSoto. Let's go to Navarro County and talk about Corsicana, who has a new head coach. Hal Wasson is going to be the new head coach of the Tigers down there in Corsicana. Hal Wasson, of course, there was all of that drama last offseason that led to his departure from Southlake Carroll. He takes a year to be the executive director, I believe, or in charge of athletics at Irving ISD, now back in the coaching game at Corsicana. Do you have any insight as far as how this came about, or was it pretty much an inevitability that Hal Wasson was going to get back on the sideline?
I think it was pretty inevitable Coach Wasson was going to be back on the sideline. I mean, obviously, regardless of what side of the fence you're on as far as his departure from Southlake Carroll, I didn't have any doubts that he left a little with something still on the table, so to speak. And I think he really wanted to. He didn't want his coaching career to end like that. So I don't think there's any doubt he was going to try to coach again. And I think the stars just kind of aligned with the Corsicana deal. He's got a connection to the superintendent there. I think she worked in Carroll ISD for a while. And Wasson has extensive ties to Navarro County. He's a native of Kearns. One of his first coaching jobs was an assistant in Corsicana. He was the head coach at Kearns, and Kearns is about 8 miles east of Corsicana on Highway 31, so it's right there. Wasson's father was on the board of trustees at Navarro College in Corsicana for a long, long time. So the Wasson name in the Corsicana community is ingrained, and he's a popular guy in the community, and he's well liked. And I think it's really a perfect fit. And for Coach Wasson, whose career has taken him, I mean, we think of him as a Southlake Carroll guy, but he's really been all over the state. His career kind of comes full circle, where this is probably going to be his last coaching job, and it actually comes in at the place where mainly it all got started for him.
Let's go over to Parker County now, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but an intriguing move in Aledo, the defending 5A Division II state champions, kind of like DeSoto, will have a once-and-future coach as well, as Tim Buchanan moves from the AD role back into the head coaching spot, and Steve Wood is now the head coach, or now going to move from head coach to AD. This is obviously an intriguing move that these guys came up with and put together. It's still got to get passed by the board, which we anticipate will happen. Do you have any insight as to how this came down? Was this just a matter of Tim Buchanan just having that itch again?
Well, Coach Buchanan, I've talked to him several times over the past few years, and being an administrator was not for him. He is not the kind of guy who wants to sign over soda contracts and concession stand deals and have to deal with, no offense, but 7th grade C-team volleyball and those kinds of things. This is not his thing. He enjoys coaching football and being out on the field. And there's no doubt he missed it. He missed it a lot. And, I think when jobs had come open in the past couple of years, he sniffed around at him and took a look at him and saw. And I think he decided after this football season that he just didn't want to be the AD anymore, and that he was going to retire and go work for a turf company and sell artificial turf, because he just did not want to be the athletic director anymore. Well, when that happened, obviously an athletic director position opened up, and Buchanan had recommended if anybody was going to replace him, he thought Coach Wood would be the best candidate for him. And Coach Wood was open to it, and I think knowing Coach Wood and knowing Coach Buchanan, I think Coach Wood, his personality is a little more suited. I think he won't dislike the role of athletic director quite as much. And Coach Wood actually older than Coach Buchanan, so I think he may have felt like it was time. The grind of the season may have just wore him down a little bit too much after this year, so I think it was a good fit for him. But when that happened, Buchanan left the door open and said, hey, I'm not done coaching. So if you guys are interested in having me coach the team again next year, I'm all for it. And so that's kind of how it all came down, and Aledo went in that direction. So I don't anticipate much change in Aledo. I think they're going to be really good again next year. I'm breaking some news there. They're going to be okay next year, and they obviously added to that today with Montero and Parks moving back from All Saints. So mean, they're going to be a really good team, and Buchanan's going to keep that train going. And it's ironic that he gets to come back to what he built. So it's a good fit, and I think Buchanan, he had the itch still. He wanted to coach and didn't want to just retire right off into the sunset quite yet. And,
of course, you're tracking all the coaching changes at TexasFootball.com. There's a ton of open jobs still out there, and that number is only growing by the day. I'm interested this week. Is there one or two jobs that you've got your eye on, you've got your ear to the ground, and anticipating some movement there?
Yeah, well, I actually just broke some news just now. Just tweeted it out. Center has hired Bell's head coach Scott Ponder to be their next head football coach. Ponder is a native of Tenaha. I think he actually went to school with Randy Jackson, which is, boy, can you imagine a classroom with Ponder and Randy Jackson in it? But he just took the center job, so he's getting back closer to home. So that just opened up. Athens is going to be making their hire Thursday at 5 o'clock. It's a really interesting job because I talked about this on Twitter. They're going to a 4-day school week next year. So that's an intriguing job. I anticipate a offensive coordinator from the Metroplex with a familiar last name to be getting that job. That will be happening Thursday. Godley is interviewing some candidates this week, and I'm really interested to see who gets the Godley job. They really have brought in some big names for a job that you wouldn't think of, but there's a lot of growth planned in Godley with the tollway coming through there, and I think that people think that's kind of a hidden gem. And then McKinney Boyd began their interviews yesterday. I know they had a prominent West Texas coach in there. They're interviewing a couple of assistants, and they've got a head coach who's got a state title pedigree, I think, interested in that job as well. So McKinney Boyd should be moving along pretty quick. Those are kind of the main jobs in the Metroplex. I'm really interested to see if there's any more movement in Houston. It's been quiet after last year's crazy offseason in Houston. It's been quiet so far. But I think we might start seeing some movement, especially down in Brazosport. Brazosport ISD just hired former Lamarck coach Alan Waddell as their new athletic director. And so now he's got the job of hiring head coaches at both Brazoswood and Brazosport in the coming weeks.
He is Matt Stepp. He's the Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School Football Insider. Follow him on Twitter. I know you already are, but Matt_Stepp817. Stepp, appreciate your time and your insights. We'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
There he goes, Matt Stepp, Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School Football Insider, giving us as much as he can as far as these things. He's like, even everyone, like every once in a while, we will understand. Stepp will tell us what he's alluding to.
Yeah.
But there are others that he won't.
Yeah.
And so we're in that same boat when he does the Stepp tease. And he's like, oh, well, it's a DFW offensive coordinator with a familiar name. I'm like, okay, who is that?
What is crossing off? It's like a familiar name.
Yeah, it could be. But in any case, appreciate him hopping on and getting the latest Texas high school football scuttlebutt from around the state.